Hey everybody, I'm James Melzer for MovieWeb, and today I am sitting down with the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, the Ocho, Le Champion, Chris Jericho, to discuss the new documentary, The Death Tour. Chris, how you doing today? I really appreciate your time.
I'm doing good, man. Just here in Park City, Utah, and I'm looking at the mountains and the snow, and it's a beautiful day, and it's a beautiful, a beautiful concept of what we're talking about.
Yes, awesome. Uh, Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of the documentary, I just sort of want to get a sense of where this all came from. You've been involved in various projects before in your career, both as a producer and as an actor. So, how did the Death Tour, the documentary, sort of come your way? Was it something that the project had already gotten started and you came on as an executive producer afterwards, or was it sort of a collaborative effort from the beginning?
I don't really recall the origins of it, but the Death Tour is a legendary kind of story if you're in pro wrestling, especially if you're from Canada.
Yes.
And to be involved with this tour, and so many, world champions and Hall of Famers have done these tours. Very grueling, very difficult. So when the idea came to me to help produce this documentary, I was very much interested in it because I know just how, like I said, how important this tour is to a young pro wrestler. Also, too, how important these tours are to the communities that they go to. The First Nation communities up in northern Manitoba, the reservations, if you will. So, to me, it would just seem like a no-brainer to be a very interesting story that we could tell. And when you make a documentary, there's two types of documentaries. There's one where the story's already been told. Like if you want to make a documentary about John Lennon, for example, his story is beginning, middle, end. We know he's dead. He's gone.
Mhm.
This was a documentary that unfolds as we film, and that very much appealed to me as well because you don't know what you're going to get. We're going to do a documentary. We're going to film for 2 weeks starting, next Tuesday. What's going to happen? We don't know. And that was very interesting to me as well. So the whole concept of the documentary was interesting. And then to see what we got once we started filming was made things even more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed the fact that it sort of told its own story rather than be a retrospective on the tour itself. I really enjoyed that it brought something fresh
Yeah.
and gave people a chance to see, the tour as it unfolds. Um,
Yeah, it was a little different. Like I was thinking more along the lines of there's so many great stories we could tell about the tours and the interactions with Tony Candello because he's such a character. And
yes, he is.
all of these, like I said, all of these Hall of Fame world champions that were involved. But as it started to unfold, we realized that wasn't exactly the story that we wanted to tell. It was much more about these people on this tour itself, and not so much about the legendary status and the legendary, tales of the tour. It was more about what was going on within this one death tour happening in 2023, not about the 50 years prior.
Yeah.
And that became something interesting to me as well because it was totally different from what I uh, expected we were going to be doing with this film.
Yeah, exactly. Now I was born in Canada. I grew up in Canada. I had heard of the Death Tour sort of growing up amongst my friends. I think it was referenced on a few episodes of Off the Record with Michael Landsberg back
Yes.
in the day. Yeah, yeah. But for the uninitiated, just briefly explain what the Death Tour is itself, because I think there might be a
Right.
misconception. People hear the name the Death Tour, they might think it has to do with deathmatch wrestling, which couldn't be
Right.
further from the truth. So what is the Death Tour?
So the death tour, the reason why we always called it that is it's very grueling. And the reason why it's grueling is you're going up to northern Manitoba in the winter. Why? I don't know. Which means, you're dealing with minus 30, minus 40 weather. You're traveling over frozen lakes to get to the reservations. And those frozen lakes sometimes aren't as frozen as you want them to be. A lot of times there's, 8-hour drives, 10-hour drives, 15-hour drives. You could get to these reservations, and if there's a death on the reservation, which happens quite often, as we know from watching this film, then the show is canceled. and you'll find that out 5 minutes within getting there. If the show is on, you wrestle in basically a high school gymnasium, and you sleep in there as well. You sleep on the floor in a sleeping bag that you bring with you. Food, you have to buy from the reservation, which if you're looking for a jar of peanut butter, it could cost $40. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah, yeah.
all
In the movie, I think it's the
the
character of the
water.
Eskimo, the water, $120 for a case of water.
And that's not exaggerating. It's very expensive, so it costs a lot of money. There's a lot of time spent in vans, a lot of times where you're kind of scared to even be traveling in these areas. When you hear the ice cracking when you're driving over it, we talk about this in the documentary, it's terrifying. This is not just about going and wrestling a 10-minute match. This is the 22 hours it takes to get to that 10-minute match, and you're terrified with that. So it's a really kind of interesting way, like, to see, do I have what it takes to be in the wrestling business, not just in the ring, but out of the ring? And that's where the Death Tour moniker came from. Like, it's you could call it the grueling tour, you could call it the not easy tour, you could call it the the stand and deliver, do you have what it takes tour.
Right.
Death Tour sounds much better, but and that's basically the reason why it's the hardest pro wrestling tour you could do when you're doing the independents and not signed to a major company by far.
Right. And you sort of touched on my next question there. We all know that in professional wrestling, the outcome of the matches are predetermined, but the physicality, the athleticism, the injuries you guys go through on a day-to-day basis are very, very real. So one of the things that the Death Tour touches on, sort of directly or indirectly, is mental health, something that doesn't really get talked about a lot in pro wrestling.
Right.
So how important is it for you to showcase sort of that aspect of the job by 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 letting people see what these people go through mentally on the tour?
Well, I mean, these people, aka all of us,
Mhm.
once again, like, I think when people think of pro wrestling, they think, oh, it's just a show and you're on, national TV, and there's millions of people watching. And that's when you get to the highest level.
Right.
Before you get to the highest level, you have to go through the lowest level, and then that's kind of what we're dealing with the Death Tour. You might not even have heard of any of these people, and of the 10 or 15 people that we focus on, you might never hear their names again. I mean, so there's a lot of mental toughness, I think, that you need to be in the business. And this kind of shows that. Like,
Yeah.
I love the aspect of people seeing the real origins of pro wrestlers, in that you don't just show up one day and you're on TV and you've got, like I said, millions of dollars in your bank account and hundreds of thousands of fans. It doesn't work that way. So to showcase the guys and girls on the tour itself was very interesting. Another thing that really came to be that we never expected when we first started is how influential the Death Tour is to the community, to the kids that come to the shows, the people that come to the shows, because these are very depressing areas when you're talking about some of these reservations. Lots of addiction, lots of suicides. So when they find out that the wrestling show is coming to town, maybe that gives them 2 or 3 months of something to look forward to. And then at the show, these low level wrestlers are main event stars. And these people in the community watching the low level wrestlers are thinking, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, because we're seeing these big stars. And like,
Yeah.
it really is very inspirational. You could call it the life tour
Yes.
as well, the
Yeah.
inspirational tour as well. So there's so much to it that, like we said, when we started rolling the cameras, that we discovered. And that's what made this movie and this project so interesting and so good, which is why we got, admitted to Slam Dance as an official selection out of thousands of movies. Ours
Yes.
was chosen from it. So we know we've struck gold and we've done something good.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a scene in the film that sort of stuck with me, and I don't know why, but it's just like a 3-second clip of this dog sort of on the hard snow and ice playing with the empty water bottle. And that really spoke to me about the isolation that these indigenous people
You're
up north
right.
face. And like you said, this is their WrestleMania. This is their all in. This is the
Yeah.
one time a year that they really get to see that, there is life outside of their communities.
Yeah, to show that dreams can come true.
Yes.
I really like that aspect of the story. And you know, you mentioned the dog on the frozen tundra, and I know
Mm.
there's another scene to me that really sticks out when they're driving up to the reservation, and there's a semi truck that's
Yes.
blocking the road because it's broken down.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around. It's
Yeah.
-30. The semi truck is blocking your only road to get to the reservation, and now we have to figure out, like, what are we going to do? And then just little things like that, like, you know, and then you get to the town and you have to set up the ring, then you have to make sure the show goes, then you have to take the ring down, then you have to set up your little bunk, you know, in the area of the gym where you're sleeping. Like, there's so much stuff that I don't think people understand, just
Yeah.
what these guys and girls go through. And like you said, but it's all worth it in the end, because then when they do the match, they get to be the stars, and the people watching get to see the stars, and it just all works together. It really is a part of pro wrestling that nobody ever sees and nobody ever will. There's no other death tour. Like, there's nothing like this in the States, and there's nothing like this in Mexico. Like, it's only in Manitoba, Canada. And when Tony Condello passes away, it might never happen again. It's been 50 years of doing this, and Tony still does it at 80 years old because he loves it. You know,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
understands the benefits of it.
he's quite the character. And that scene, you were talking about with the semi, broken down, he's out there smoking 2 cigarettes at a time, just trying to pass the time.
It's his life. You know what I mean? He's seen and done it all. So once again, when you do these types of films and you're telling these stories, you know, it's like the Rolling Stones. When the Rolling Stones are done, you'll never have another band like them ever again.
Absolutely.
And when Tony Condello is done, you'll never have another tour as grueling and as rewarding as this one is in pro wrestling. And
Right.
anybody that's a pro wrestler, like I said, I've done one. World champions have done one. If you're just starting out in wrestling, you need to track Tony Condello down and ask him to please put you on one of these tours, because you'll never forget it and you will learn so much. And now the audience gets to learn it by watching the documentary.
Absolutely. And the documentary, The Death Tour, makes its premiere today as we record this, January 19th, at the Slam Dance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. That's a big win for you and Stefan Peterson, Sonia Ballantyne.
Yeah.
How important is it being accepted into a festival like this? And obviously, you guys are hoping for more festival appearances down the line this year, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think when you do a documentary, and I've produced a couple now, there's a couple different ways of going and of trying to get people to know about it. And when you do the film festival route, it's, you know, it's hard. And for Slam Dance to get accepted here, I heard there was like 5,000 movies submitted, and, you know, 50 are chosen, and ours was one of them. So it's a big honor, you know, and to be here at Slam Dance. Like I said, I'm looking out the window right now at this wonderful snow covered mountain, and we're in like a ski village. Like, this is a big deal. And, you know, I'm really excited because we're going to sit there and watch the premiere in a theater. And I don't know if there's going to be 500 people there or five, but either way, it's going to be nerve wracking to be watching our movie with people that have never seen it. And you're hoping for the big standing ovation and confetti dropping from the ceiling. That's all fine and dandy. We know we made a great movie, and it's great to be able to premiere it here at Slam Dance, such a prestigious festival, to let people see this story that we're very proud of telling.
Absolutely. It is a tremendous documentary. I ended up watching it twice last
Thank
night.
you. Wow, that's
Really
awesome.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All the best to you guys with the Death Tour. Continued success in AEW. I love what you're doing. Just one quick question before I let you go. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, but Terrifier 3, have you seen the script, and when do you start filming?
I have seen the script. I've already kind of done the I guess it's kind of like the filming that they do when they're taking molds of your face and
Yep.
all this sort of thing. So suffice to say, I don't have a good I don't last very long, but it's going to be great. It's if you love Terrifier 2, you're going to love Terrifier 3, because it even ups the ante even more.
All right, Chris Jericho, thank you for speaking to MovieWeb. I really, really appreciate your time. All the best.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it too.